This is a good chapter. It's about involving students in implementing a culture of sustainability on campus, which, in addition to the education part of it, the learning part of it, they also kind of inculcate the ideas, the details, the barriers, the gaps, the obstacles to implementing the culture of sustainability. Courses in sustainability studies are garnering significant interest across US colleges and universities and are increasingly represented in a wider range of disciplines, including economics. Now you have sustainable economics and you have sustainable buildings, water, food, agriculture. The latter edition is consistent with the Brundtland recommendation and offers a significant opportunity to foster understanding of both the basis for present decision making as well as the values foundation required for the shift from a consumerism fostered culture to one of sustainable economic development based on intergenerational equity. Brundtland Conference from the late 1970s, limits of growth, and so on, included this idea that we need to exploit the resources of what are available now without jeopardizing the ability of the future generations to exploit the same resource. Very general statement, very motherhood kind of statement, but that corresponds to the intergenerational equity as well. This paper provides an overview of economics of sustainability course offering at Northeastern University in Boston. Students in 2 sections of a same semester offering of the same course were assigned to groups wherein they determined a group-based semester-long project. The parameters of the project required a life cycle or cost-benefit assessment, inclusive of externalities, and projects were specific to a current university action that could be modified to promote campus sustainability. So, technical words there. Life cycle analysis is where you track things from the beginning to the end. It could be the phone, the raw materials coming in, transported, processed, manufacturing, assembling, transported back to retailers, bought, and then end of life kind of analysis. So those are important to make sure that the system is really sustainable or a particular product that is claimed to be sustainable is in fact sustainable end to end through the life cycle. And applying it to specific campus projects is important because you do analysis, you provide feedback, and see if the adjustments are made to the project to ensure that it is in fact sustainable based on the analysis done. Given that sustainability was an objective and a marketing stance of the institution, the projects, which ranged from a consignment store to a local food sourcing resource measurement and efficiency, were aligned to the publicly stated university goals and were designed to be shared with the university administration and ultimately implemented. That's the key part. The latter aspect provided students with both an incentive and a tangible outcome that promoted their longer-term educational goals and maybe helped them think about everything in this kind of life cycle analysis. Overall, the assignment process is one that can be replicated and offers an opportunity to incorporate a campus-based cultural orientation to sustainability within a course design. So this is experiential learning and so on. We'll just read off some definitions of things, and then there are a lot of details on how the projects were set up. I'm not going to go into the tables, but Beach 1938, way back when, proposed perhaps the most important job of the teacher in social sciences is to develop the student's power of discernment, understanding. The students must learn that one idea does not contain the whole truth, and when this is learned, the student's progress will be more rapid. The inclusion of sustainability offers students an alternative perspective on the assumptions of insatiable appetite to consume, profit maximization, and externalities as market failures. Externalities are things that are not directly related to what you are discussing, let's say buying and consuming something, versus how buying that affect somebody, or how that product was produced, and maybe a farmer was exploited, child labor, all kinds of externalities can be there that directly don't relate to what you are doing. Discussion of sustainability offers a potential challenge and forces the inclusion of time and cost-benefit assessment of preferences, as well as moral and ethical issues of consumption solely for the individual gratification. In other words, time-related benefits. So inclusion of time in cost benefit assessment means I buy a phone and I use it, I pay some price. It's not just that instantaneous exchange that determines the cost benefit of this exchange. There are people involved in resourcing the material, manufacturing the iPhone, selling, transporting it, selling it, person who is selling it, and owner of the shop. So there are all kinds of time-related benefits and costs associated that we often don't even think about. As Nodler and Underwood 2003 concluded, the alternative set of economic principles offers a foundation for a principles course that provides a richer understanding of the real economy. Whether the instructor of the principles chooses to build his or her course exclusively around the alternative principles, or instead uses them as counterpoints to introduce a multi-paradigmatic and thoughtful survey of major issues, we are certain that students will be more engaged in the subject matter while continuing to increase their capacity for critical thinking. After all, economics is the business of ordinary life, and it's time that we returned to that subject matter in our principles courses. In other words, economics, supply, demand, cost, benefit, marginal cost, marginal benefits. There is a traditional way of teaching it. If you start adding economics principles, life cycle analysis, circular economy ideas, and economic development versus economic growth, then you are having additional alternative principles being added. So how you add them, or you entirely focus on the alternative approach, is up to the instructor, but that should make the student be fully aware of how the old paradigm worked and how you are trying to introduce a new paradigm. Our present society builds on the systems established at settlement, and it is evident that perception of the environment as a resource dominates economic thought. So this is talking about the US Northeastern University. Settlement is when people came over and colonized North America. It's embedded within our discussion of the production possibilities frontier, PPF, and our economic policy focus, in that we seek to maximize production subject to resource constraints at any given point in time. That's the core principle, core economic principle that has driven market economy. In the case of production, this conforms to policy, monetary and fiscal, that seeks to maintain or establish the economy at its peak in business cycle terms, or at its potential relative to the gross domestic product measure. So here fiscal and monetary correspond to interest rates, banks, tax revenues, government spending. So principles are different based on who's trying to do what. So look at this figure here, production possibility frontier, PPF. So you have Z here, where you say people are able to consume whatever they want. They are not satiated. So you have good X and good Y going along this line. So when good X is at its maximum, good Y goes to 0, and vice versa. And then you have more constrained system where satiation is not fully to be allowed. So you have situation A, where you are again going along the same curve, but you are shifted. So again, X maximum, Y maximum, X0, Y0, and so on. How does it work? In figure 1, the production you have to remember, production possibility frontier line labeled Z represents a society for which insatiable wants have been embedded into the culture, and the PPF represents the maximum production possible in economy given resource availability at a given point in time. This society must rely on the identification of new resources and technology to enable future consumption or an outward shift of the PPF over time. So in other words, if you're maximizing your use of resources and consumption, then you're going to run out of resources at some point. On the other hand, the society depicted as operating on PPF A, while having the ability to attain PPF Z would be inconsistent with the full resource utilization. So in this case, we are not using all the resources at any given point of time, but we are hedging our bets towards sustainability, let's say. Society A, though representing a society that is guided by the cultural value of intergenerational equity and the satiation of needs relative to the balance of the environmental and social sustainability, it would be inefficient based on prevailing economic theory. So if you try to do basic cost benefit theory, then there are non-market values norms involved in the PPF A. The Z economy would consider A to represent an inefficient use of resources if some resources were left idle. So if maximum resource use brings you here, so if you use all the Y that you can use to produce X, Y should go to 0, but here you are leaving some, you are producing less X, or here you are not using up all the Y to make X. So extreme cases, but you understand the point. Prices based solely on consumption value. Sorry, did I go in the wrong direction? Yes, I did. So Z economy would consider A to represent an inefficient use of resources if some resources were left behind, left aside. The PPF line labeled Z represents the maximum production possible in an economy given resource availability at a given point in time. Z also corresponds to a society for which insatiable wants have been embedded into the culture. But from a macroeconomic perspective, consumption at the maximum production level, which is depicted as the highest PPF attainable, is consistent with the assumption of insatiable appetites to consume on the part of individual economic agents. On an aggregate or macro level, this then is consistent with the GDP maximization. Gross domestic product is when you are fully monetized all your resources and production. In both cases, an individual's consumption is based on prices, which by their present market determination exclude externalities. So you're assuming all the resources are available and are not limited by anything like a supply chain coming from outside and so on, which are externalities. Prices based solely on consumption value significantly underprice production and waste stage of the product life cycle, promoting unsustainable consumption levels relative to the resource use. So basic sustainability ideas. Now we'll look at a more complicated figure here, life cycle of a consumption product. So you have natural resources extracted as raw materials, design and production happens, packaging and distribution happens, use and maintenance, and then disposal, and maybe there is some recycling happening, or you have incineration and landfilling happening. But if you design it properly, then use and maintenance and design and production can be synergized so that disposal brings recycling of materials and components built into design and production, and reuse brings us back to use and maintenance, so that you are not going into this continued exploitation of resources or incineration and landfilling. These are the kind of figures that imply circular economy. Sometimes there are other words like donut economy and so on. So as depicted in figure 2, along a product life cycle, each step of the life cycle may have costs that are not captured in price because firms have no incentive to include costs that they do not need to address. Right? If government is providing you free electricity or free import of some material and so on, you may not add any cost to the consumer and just focus on giving products at the lowest price possible with maximum profit. Their focus is profit maximization in the sense investor returns. So investors worry about profits, and individuals presently, The focus is profit maximization or investor returns, and individuals presently are assumed to be incentivized to maximize consumption subject to an income constraint. So you are buying things based on your income, luxury or necessity. The lower the prices, the more of their insatiable desire to consume that can be fulfilled. Right? Challenging standard consumptions in economics relative to the sustainability of outcomes presently resulting from the institutionalization of the same assumptions provides the opportunity to introduce alternative choices, assumptions, and outcomes, prompting student discernment between social construction of theories of behavior and decision making exclusive of asymmetric information. So you are now going beyond just cost benefit and satiation of consumption needs, and you are worrying about social values, well-being, standards of living, quality of life, and maybe other external things. These elements became the foundation of a course offering economics of sustainability at Northeastern University in Boston, Massachusetts. The course itself mimicked the institution's stated commitment to sustainability, and students were guided through the curriculum and introduced to a methodology to assess an aspect of institutional activity specific to its sustainability. So examples were not theoretical or ideal, they were actual institutional activities. The following sections provide a description of the course, the issues faced in the sustainability assessment, the outcome of the student reflection of the assessment, and specific to the latter, a recommendation for the inclusion of stakeholder engagement in sustainability studies. Okay, here are some ideas. Northeastern University and sustainability. Across all dimensions of its mission, Northeastern embraces environmental sustainability as a core value. This is driven by the fact that Northeastern is a university in tune with the world, including the world's greatest global challenges. Those are nice words, but they don't have numbers, metrics, indicators, monitoring, evaluation behind them. That's where the student projects come in. Northeastern's commitment to leadership in sustainability is manifest in all areas of operations, in how we teach our students, in how we drive our research, and in how we operate our campus. That's the key part. With nearly 200 courses that integrate sustainability, with the expected research funding in excess of $45 million this year, and with a pledge to reduce our carbon footprint by 80% before 2050, there has to be a baseline to save 80% below what? Below the 2000 level, 1900 level, so that's critical. Northeastern's pursuit of a sustainable future is relentless. Again, more general statements, even though these numbers are specific. 80% carbon footprint reduction before 2050 with reference to some baseline. Okay, throughout our research we were met with further obstacles similar to this. So there is an obstacle that the students' projects found. This opened my eyes to the lack of transparency institutions like Northeastern University have when it comes to their operations. So students were told to carry out certain experiments with the learnings they were getting in class, and quickly they found that transparency was an issue, which is a real issue in the real world. It was disappointing to discover that our university was greenwashing. There you go, serious finding by students with their own experiments. By providing me with this hands-on investigation into the sustainability practices or lack thereof at my university, I discovered the problems our society and environment face today. The course made me realize that economics and sustainability need to be fully integrated to work. You cannot have economics driving towards profit maximization and then talk about sustainability. All of the 8 project groups reported a similar issue with respect to obtaining assistance and information from the university. Many cases, students related that no reply communication was provided to them after emailing and calling their designated facilities contact person. So such barriers are common, and this is a learning experience for the students, and it shows that even within the university, which has a proclaimed goal of sustainability, has resistance from the system itself, because you have sometimes old ways that don't change, and people who are used to old ways or are doing things in their own way or maybe have something to hide will not share the data they are supposed to share. Concluding comments and next steps, they got a few things here. The curriculum exercises shared provide a significant step forward with respect to the explicit introduction of sustainability through the creation of a dedicated course. There are many details of the course and the project that I've skipped, but you'll get the points that I'm trying to make. Economics of Sustainability is the course. The results obtained were consistent with expectations. By increasing student awareness of the interconnectivity between consumption, production, growth, and sustainability, students became better informed with respect to the significance of assessment and alignment of stakeholder groups in fostering sustainable economic outcomes. However, an unanticipated outcome and learning experience for the students was specific to the alignment of operations with a stated goal. University made goals, maybe administration made it up. The operational people, facilities, maintenance guys, and everybody else was not really trained to respond to the demands from students for data. The discussion of stakeholders' incentives and alignment was not an explicit or informal aspect of the course objectives and presented an opportunity to discuss the obstacles and challenges to project implementation. Recommendations for next steps in this replicable assignment framework would be to integrate stakeholder communication and evaluation of stakeholder groups and their alignment and incentivization to a stated university sustainability goal. So the previous examples we saw from UBC and from Bologna, the quantitative measures were not provided, but again, you have to be clear. Here students directly accuse the university of greenwashing. The others written more positively about the university efforts. We couldn't verify with numbers whether those were successful exercises or not. Okay, so this is something you have to always keep in mind. We'll continue this with example from University of São Paulo Environmental Policy. It's a educational curriculum activity, master plan and pilot projects for Pirassununga and Ribeirão Preto campuses. I have no idea how to say them. Portuguese is a little bit difficult, but nonetheless we will come back and read those. Okay.